gamers, it's here. Snapshot season is finally back. So, snapshots are, in case you don't know, are developmental versions that you can check out, that are of the upcoming update. So right now, snapshots for 1.18 have started yesterday. And as you could have maybe seen just a second ago, I'm experiencing a bit of lag in these because my laptop isn't handling the new generation very well. So here's what the snapshots look like. So this is a really new thing if you haven't been following the experimental snapshots. I've been following most of the experimental snapshots, so this generation doesn't look too new to me, but to you guys this probably looks pretty crazy. So here's these enormous hills, and these aren't any special mountains biomes, these are just the normal plains biome. And over here we have a snowy tundra biome, which looks pretty cool. And there's the new caves, so that's one of the main other things in the snapshot. The new surface generation, like these big hills, and I'll show you guys the new mountains in a bit, but then these new caves. So these caves are huge. If you see this right here, this goes way down here, goes through, there's this big aquifer kind of water thing there. There's this big ravine going this way, there's another cave over there, so this is one of the new large caves. There's also a few new cave biomes, so I'll show you some of those. Okay, so here I am, and I've located a Lush Caves biome. Now, if you look at where I am, this is a giant tree tasia, a giant tree tasia, and it doesn't look like anything much right now. But if you go underground, I'll just change into game mode spectator for this. There will be the Lush Caves biome down there. So the Lush Caves biome is one of the new things added in the snapshots that is going to be added. So Lush Caves adds lots of new blocks to the game. So the first block is down here, and I'll pop into creative to show you this. This block is moss. So moss is this stuff. It's a kind of cool building block, and you can mine it out really quickly, even with your hands. So this is a good block for if you're just kind of pillaring up somewhere or using for like some kind of scaffolding and you don't want to take a long time to mine blocks. And the next thing that is being added is azalea. So there's normal and flowering kinds, and they look like this. There's normal azalea and flowering. So if you have an azalea bush, it works with normal or flowering. You can bone meal this, and there it is. It turns into an azalea tree. Now, the azalea trees are normally leaning to one direction like this tree. It's kind of leaning toward the hill. And the azalea trees aren't actually really an azalea tree because look what kind of wood it uses. Oak wood. So azalea wood is not a thing yet, although there are both azalea leaves and flowering azalea leaves. So there are two kinds of leaves, but no kind of wood for this tree. So I'm hoping before the 1.18 update drops that azalea tree wood stuff will actually be added. But so far that's not the case. Although azalea stuff has been around in 1.17, so you guys might actually already know about this. But you can finally find it generating down in the Lush Caves. And I'll hop back down to Lush Caves to show you some of the other stuff. Okay, so some of this other stuff is the moss carpet. So this moss carpet, so like the normal moss block, is like a carpet. So this little guy is kind of short. And you can place it on the ground. It kind of looks like a green carpet, just a bit of a different texture. It doesn't really do much. It just kind of decorational. It just looks cool, similar to normal moss blocks. And the next thing are the glowberries. So these are these vines, and if you place them down, they have to be hanging from the ceiling, and eventually they'll grow down, and they look like this as vines. Some of these, like this one, has berries. If you right-click, berries will pop off, and you'll get a glowberry item, and then you could grow that on the ceiling. And lots of times, the glow vines, or that they're called the cave vines, won't grow glowberries. Like this one has no berries on it. And the reason being is that there's a certain % chance that it'll grow berries. So if it reaches all the way down to the ground and there's no berries on the thing after a little while, then it won't ever grow berries. So you just crush this down until the top one and wait for it to regrow and see if it'll grow berries that time. So it's kind of a bit of trial and error figuring out whether or not it'll grow berries. Also, you can eat this stuff. Yes, I'm in creative mode. You can't really tell how much stuff it does, but it does exactly one shank of food. So it's not the worst food ever, but it's not exactly super good. And the next block I'll be talking about in the Lush Caves here is the drip leaf. So right here, this is the big drip leaf, and there's also a small drip leaf, which is right here. So the small drip leaf can only be placed on clay blocks, and if I dig under here, moss blocks. And they cannot be placed on stone or grass or normal stuff like that. They can also be placed partially underwater. If you place one, you notice that they're 2 blocks high, and they're just mostly a decorational block. And the big drip leaf is not as much a decorational block. So this guy can be pretty tall, or really as tall as you want, and if you crush one, the whole thing will smash down. The point of these is, if you stand on one, it'll tilt down, and then you'll fall off. And after a couple seconds, it'll go back up. So that's pretty much the point of drip leaf, so you can make a big bridge out of these that you'd have to run across like really fastly to get across. Like say if I was on this, I'd have to run across it, and then it'd all tilt down. So yeah. Anyway, that's the big drip leaf plants. And now, if you want to get the big drip leaf plants, and you don't have access to the Lush Caves yet, you can use the small drip leaf plants. So, one of the little guys I found over here. So this little tiny guy, get some of this, you can trade for it from the wandering trader. And if you take bone meal, and you bone meal it, it'll turn into some big drip leaves that you can smash and take the big drip leaf. And then you can use that. And if you bone meal big drip leaf, you go taller, and then you can get more big drip leaf that way. So that's how you get the big drip leaf. And yeah, so that's just about all of the features in the Lush Cave, except the most useless feature of them all, which there is one nearby because of the green particles floating on the air. I'll just take a second to find one. Okay, here it is. It's called a spore blossom. So these things, if I take one, they can only hang from the ceiling. So if I try to place them on the floor or a wall, it won't place down. They can only be placed on the underside of a block. And so they spawn on the roof of the Lush Caves, and these little green things kind of drip off of them, but also just all around in the air. And I think it's a 25 by 25 block radius. There'll be these random green particles floating around like that. And that's what the spore blossom does. And there's currently in 1.17, there is no way to get this. Although it is in the game 1.17, it's a creator mode only item. But once 1.18 rolls around, or if you're playing in these snapshots like I am, then you can legitimately get the spore blossom in survival mode. So that's how the spore blossom works. Okay, the next biome I'm going to show you guys is the Dripstone Caves. I'll give myself a bit of night vision, and then we'll hop in there. And also, on a side note, in the Lush Caves, you didn't really need night vision because of the fact that the glow berries produce light if there are berries on the vines. So you don't really need night vision to see in the Lush Caves. But the Dripstone Caves is a really dark place, so I'm going to give myself some night vision so you can see in here. So, right here is the Dripstone Caves. So, there are these small puddles of water on the ground, but the main thing is dripstone. This block and these pointed things. So, I'll pop myself into creative. And this is the pointed dripstone, and this is the dripstone block. These are about the only things that are in the dripstone caves. I'll get rid of this effect, and you can see how dark it is in the dripstone caves. So it'd be really hard to see in here if you're in survival mode, unless you find a bit of glow like in here, like this. Anyway, I'll pop the night vision back to myself so you can see, and then I'll get on with the video. So this is the dripstone block, and you can place it down. It's pretty much just a decorational block, doesn't do much. And this is a pointed dripstone. So this is pretty much like a stalagmite or stalactite kind of thing. You can place it on the ground, and it'll turn into like a stalagmite, sort of. If you place it on the ceiling, it'll be a stalactite. And I'm pretty sure that's the correct versions. And these things don't do a whole lot, but if you land on them, they do an insanely large amount of damage. Like, if I put one on the ground, and I go game mode, survival, and I jump, just jumping up one block and falling back down, I lose a little bit of health. So if I just sat and jumped up and down on here, I would eventually die. And I only have to jump up and down one block. So if you're like pillaring with this stuff, you could just end up dying. So this is a pretty dangerous thing. And right now we have a nice little test subject right here. So, hello zombie. You go ahead and get down below one of the dripstone things. Okay, so zombie, have him right here. if I crush some of this, it'll fall, drop on his head, and he'll get hurt. So it doesn't take a whole lot to kill him, since these do a decent amount of damage. See, two nice sized stalagmites, or no, stalactites actually, and he's dead. But that's just about all for the Dripstone Caves. Now I'll move on to the next thing, which actually looks like it is right outside of the Dripstone Caves here. So these are the new mountains. So pretty much the biggest thing and the best thing about 1.18. So this is, I believe, the Lofty Peaks biome. So if I hit F3, you can see right over here that this is the snowy slopes actually going up the hill, and at the top will be the Lofty Peaks right there. So you can look right where my mouse is over on the side. See how it says Lofty Peaks, and if you go down the hill a bit, snowy slopes. So it's the snowy slopes biome that goes up the hill. There's lofty peaks at the top, but those aren't the only kinds of mountain biomes. There's also the grove. Right now it says I'm in a grove, but I'm really not in a grove, even though it's technically considered a grove. Grove looks pretty much like this. This is the snowy taiga, actually, or snowy taiga. The grove looks pretty much like the snowy taiga, just has a full block of snow like this on the ground. So right now I'm in a grove. So this is pretty much what it looks like. There's actually no trees in this little small grove. Right over there is actually the snowy taiga, so there's 0 trees in this grove. But you can imagine what the grove looks like if it has trees. Just it's like the snowy taiga, and you take snow blocks and go like this. So this is pretty much what a grove biome looks like right here. So this is a grove biome pretty much. Anyway, the grove isn't the most exciting part though. The exciting part are these really big mountains. So these mountains aren't the coolest kind of mountains, especially these ones with lots of dirt in them look kind of ugly. But the mountains that are all snow or have stone in them look a lot nicer. The mountains that look even better are ones that have ice in them, and I'll show you some of those in a little bit. But see how tall these get? I'm at Y coordinate 215. Normal ground level is at 70, so this is like almost 200 blocks above ground level. This is about 150 blocks above ground level or so, because sea level is at 63. So this is like over 100 blocks above normal ground level. So that's like really tall. And nothing before 1.18 could have ever gotten that tall. And also they've increased the building limit up to 320, and it used to be at 256, and now mountain peaks I think can only reach 256, but there still is room for building above that. And I'll go ahead and show you some of the icy mountains, because those are the best ones. So I'll locate the biome. It's called a snow-capped peaks. There it is, even though there's no snow here. So I'll teleport myself into this. And there are still lots of caves under these mountains. In fact, there is a huge amount of caves under this mountain. But snow-capped peaks looks like this. So right now, it doesn't look like anything special, but if I head up the mountain, there's a bit of ice, and that's not normal ice, that's actually packed ice. And this isn't an insanely large amount. There are definitely spots that have way more ice, and I'll try to go ahead and find one of those, because that mountain right there is not very impressive on the amount of ice it has. Okay, this is what I was talking about. These huge, huge mountains with tons of ice on them. So this is all packed ice. So if you had a silk touch pickaxe, you could come in and take like all of this. Although the mountain wouldn't look cool anymore, so that'd be kind of a waste. But there's these big patches of ice, and the reason on the other mountain you're not seeing very much is because it looks like these bits of ice that are covered up by snow. So the ice that's exposed, like this, looks super cool. Look like the big, like, ice waterfall kind of things. And so these just generate all over in the snow-capped peaks. Even though the snow-capped peaks is called snow-capped peaks, it has ice in it. And the lofty peaks is the one with no ice. So it's a little bit confusing, but that's just how it is. So this is the snow-capped peaks. It looks pretty cool, but the best biome of them all, well, this is the second best, I'd say, but the best of them all, what I would say, is the meadow biome. But we'll view that one last. There's still one more biome called the stony peaks. So I'll locate one of those and meet up with you guys in a second. Okay, here it is in all of its glory. The Stony Peaks biome. So, as you can see, this is next to a very warm biome, the Badlands and the Savannah, and it has no snow on it. And the reason is because this mountain biome is a very warm mountain biome, and the temperature is hot, and it goes next to deserts and savannas and things like that. So, this biome generates nearby the other biomes that are warm, and normally if a snowy mountain tried to generate here, it would turn into a snow-capped peaks. The other really cool things about this is these big stripes. These are actually made out of calcite, the block that's an amethyst geode, so you don't have to go tearing up geodes if you want to build this calcite. So that's another plus of the snowy, or the Stony Peaks biome. So this biome is pretty cool. So these biomes are probably, so far, my favorite biome in the game, the mountain meadow. So, or it's called the meadow, but I call it the mountain meadow because it's in a mountain. So all kinds of small flowers generate here, like poppies and dandelions, alliums, there's all the kinds of flowers. Although alliums are the best kind of flowers, these little purple ones. Anyway, all of these different kinds of flowers generate in this biome. So normally there's kind of one or two kinds of flowers that the biome is centered on. Like right here, it's mainly alliums and dandelions here, and nothing else. So, and also there's poppies down there. But pretty much the meadow and also the grove biome that I showed you earlier are biomes that are supposed to lead up to a big mountain, like either the snowy slopes, lofty peaks, or snow-capped peaks. These look like lofty peaks and snowy slopes here. And these biomes are supposed to be like kind of the intermediate section in between something like a normal plains biome down here and a big mountain up there. So the grass color is a bit like kind of darker, you can see right there, or a bit more kind of like bluish, kind of like the one in the taiga. Just a bit more green, so it's a really nice grass color. The water in this biome is very deep blue. So right there, there's a bit of water, and it looks really deep blue. So that's a kind of cool thing. Occasionally you can find a really tall birch tree or really tall oak tree here, but normally there's not any trees in the meadow. And yep, right over there, there's an oak tree. Sometimes they're not the tall ones, but lots of times they are the tall ones, at least if they're birch trees they are. And yeah, also another thing is villages can generate in these meadows. But big grip on that, they're just the normal villages that are in the plains biome. So there's no special kind of village for the meadow. Hoping that they'll add a special kind of village for the meadow soon, but they haven't yet. So here's another example of the Dripstone Caves. It's on the surface right here, and it actually looks pretty nice here, especially with this giant big hill in the background. And yeah, so anyway guys, that'll actually probably be about it for the video. That's the main big things I added in this snapshot. There are a lot of other small things, maybe a few items. I don't know if that a ton of items or not, but it's mostly the big generation of the mountains, the caves, and just the overall hilliness of the overworld. So anyway guys, this video is getting sort of long, so if you like this video, drop a like, and subscribe if you haven't yet. It's been your boy Fyler here today. I hope you have liked this video.